This episode is dedicated to Beetle and his wife. Sadly, his wife passed earlier today as we're recording this, so this episode goes out to him, and our thoughts and prayers be with them. With that, let's get to the show.
Warning.
Watch very closely now. 3, 2, 1. Bzow! Check that out.
The following podcast features terrible jokes.
You know you can use Hot Wheels cars when you need to make a saving throw in D&D? Every car is die-cast.
Usually about board games.
We want the fun. Gotta have that fun.
Must insist that no one attempt to recreate any joke performed on this podcast.
We had less technical issues than $1 million company.
All right!
This is Boards and Swords.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Boards and Swords. This is a podcast where we have bad jokes, we've got good folks, and we've got some tabletop games. I'm one of your hosts. My name's Chris Renshaw. I'm going to flip it over here. And in the bottom corner, we have my PIC, Mr. Philip Herbig. How are you doing?
What's happening? PIC.
Partner in crime.
Okay, gotcha.
I've said partner in crime before, and last time you were all like, X-nay on the crime A.
Well, yeah, man.
So I tried short. It doesn't work when you have me spell it out.
Faces are going to be on the internet, man. They're going to know what we did.
You know what you did.
I forgot what I did.
All right. And then joining us this week, we have Patrick Leader, the leader of Leader Games.
Hello.
I'm sure that joke's never been made before.
Less than you think. So that's okay. I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
I've seen the Judge Mills Lane from Celebrity Deathmatch. I'll allow it.
Oh man. So for those that may not recognize the company, what games might they recognize from Leader Games?
We made a game called Trick or Treat a long time ago. We made a game called Vast, the Crystal Caverns, a long time ago. We made a game called Oath, and a game called coming soon called Arcs, and a game called Ahoy, and a game called Fort, and this really very popular game called Root. Geez, what's the byline for Root? My brain is totally blanking on it. Hold on. I gotta think of my own game here. A game of woodland might and right.
I was about to say I remembered it rhyming. That was...
Yeah. I haven't had to say that in a while, so you guys got me. It was a long day in the office.
If your favorite game has 4 letters in it, it was probably a Leader game.
But not anymore, because a lot of companies started adopting that style, and we're gonna run out of 4-letter words someday in the future, and then there's gonna be some problems. So.
You just need to have a word game about making 4-letter words.
And mint new words. Yeah. I'm into this. I think this is what we should do in the future.
That's where we mentioned something about AI briefly in the show. It's just going to be that everybody's over here asking like oh, who's using AI in their artwork? Leader Games is using it to make the names of their game.
That's certainly not the artwork. So yeah, that'll be the one use I allow. So.
Well, we're going to get into talking all about those games here in a minute, but first we have some news.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, nothing, Philip. There it goes. All right, my best friends were debating which place in the Caribbean was the best place to visit. I'm still not sure where island.
I was drinking at that moment. How dare you?
So I saw the name of this game and I couldn't, this was one of those that, I had to pull it up just based on the name. Now on Kickstarter is Toothead. Don't let them eat ya. It is battle survival on a polluted island. Here, I got the actual Kickstarter up here too. This game is already funded with 26 days left to go. Let's see. Let me get T on here. Welcome to a world where everyone wants to eat you. To survive, you must watch your back and eat others to avoid hunger. During the game, you embody one of the Tootheads, residents of a littered island where the waste of humanization fuels a voracious existence. It's a card dice board game, characterized by interaction between players. So, yeah, I mean, any game where you get to eat the other players, I mean, that's got to be a plus, right?
Yeah. This is quite the design here.
Yeah. Sneaky
I
moves.
can-
I'm reminded of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch commercials.
Yes. I
Oh,
was,
yeah.
Yeah, I see it now. Maybe that's what inspired it. It does look
I like that you tear off little bits of their face and it turns into meat for the other players to eat. That's that's pretty exciting.
Oh yeah, with the character tiles. Yes, I see that where
Mhm.
you flip them over. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. A modern
that stuff-
D4 die. Oh, that's wild. It's a cube-ish, but it's a
Oh, because it's got the
D4.
two round. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got two rounded sides. It's a D4. You won't like break your foot when you step on it.
Well, where's the fun in that, man?
Yeah, weak.
Yeah, I want D4 that I can make into caltrops whenever.
Exactly. I mean, that's like the gamer's home defense system is just D4s littering a hallway.
especially when I've got
alpha.
them like labeled out here, and I just grab the D4 box and just like chuck it. Like, we home
There's
alone in
a-
this.
There's an RPG called Caltrops. It only uses D4.
Nice.
Yeah,
Especially you get the metal D4s. Oof.
lethal.
Over. Last one standing wins. This Philip, this has got you written all over it.
I'm digging this game, man.
Let's see. And there's a nibble phase.
I'm just looking at are these? I'm hoping that those are just like. Well, no, because you look at that GIF down there, and it looks like they're semi attached to the cards to begin with.
Are you
Yeah,
talking about the tiles?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
there's
I-
little
yeah.
tokens that fit in. It's like a double layer player board and then it's like you take it off and it becomes more of a skeleton underneath.
yeah, but it's kind of folding out. I get what you're seeing. Yeah,
Yeah, like you can
Yeah.
almost in one of the corners you can see like that white mark where it tore
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
from the paper.
yeah. Here's
that
a
might just be the
this-
prototype though.
this is here's a better GIF where it kind of shows like the chit, coming off to be like the meat.
Yeah. All right.
But yeah, this game, this is its first game. A new studio in the gaming world from Toothead Games.
Looks pretty good. $100.
Yeah.
Don't
get
name
everything.
your game. Don't name your studio after your game. You might want to make another game someday.
Yeah.
And then what are you gonna do? So, not that I don't have the high ground here because people walk up to me all the time and say, "Wait, you guys make something else besides Root?" And I'm like, "Sure do."
Some of us remember the beginnings. What was it?
Wait,
I'll get to it. We'll get to it in the actual interview.
no
All right,
worries. Yeah,
moving
let's
on.
do more news.
I wanted to fill out my bookshelf, so I found the perfect novel that would fit in the empty space that I had left. However, when it arrived, I forgot about a pre-order that I had placed months before. Turns out that space had been double booked. So, Darkness Over Arkham. So we've had Fantasy Flight Games, and they've got their Arkham Horror series, and then they started a couple years ago. It was way before the pandemic. I want to say it was like 2018. They had their Aconite books, which is like, hey, we're going to make books off of the properties we have. And they were actually really good. Like I read the first few of them, and they were pretty solid. But now they're kind of merging them. Where they have, we've seen kind of the big takeover of like solo RPGs that are kind of this like choose your own adventure sort of. Like the one we talked about, the Call of Cthulhu one was very much like that. Well, now they're doing one for Arkham, which is like kind of one of those like, duh, why have we not seen this before now? Kind of.
Yes.
That was like my first thought. I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. So, The Darkness Over Arkham is the first volume in the new Arkham Horror Investigators Gamebook series. That's a really long title for a series. Authored by Jonathan Green, this interactive narrative offers the opportunity to step into the role of investigator in the Arkham Horror universe. It unfolds with the mysterious death of a professor whose body is found melted, setting the stage for an investigation. So, and then, unlike traditional books, it encourages readers by allowing them to make decisions that affect the story's progression. So it looks like there's some apps involved as well, because I've got some screenshots on the app. Either that's just a PDF you could load, one of the two.
Yeah, it looks about right. Yeah.
So, series is designed to be compatible across different volumes, so you can use any character in any book. Players will manage skills that you've seen before, like health and sanity, willpower, intellect, yada yada. And it's going to have mechanics like clues and resources and doom levels. Pre-fill options for the character sheets online, including mobile friendly. That's what I was seeing before. Looks like it's already on sale. Today's past the 7th. So yeah.
Pre-order's open.
The pre-order is open. Well, it was available when this article went up. Now it's available for sale, starting last week-ish, roughly.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, Darkness Over Arkham.
Already for sale on Amazon.
Oh, if you got it open. How much is it?
On Amazon, it is $15.26.
Oh, that's perfect. I was wondering what it was going to cost. Yeah, that's
Nice.
a solid purchase right there. I'm probably going to have to get
Is this also an Arkham RPG, or is this another in the series?
So there is
Welcome
an
to
RPG.
Arkham?
There is an RPG coming. I think that's a Gen Con release
Okay.
thing. I would not be surprised if this shares a lot of traits with that.
Sure.
Because, like I said, we've got the solo RPG thing has been a big deal. So making the RPG would make it easier to make the books as well for a solo experience. So I would not be surprised, but they don't mention any connection. So, yeah, more to come on that. I'll have to get a personal look at that, definitely.
So do y'all? I'm going to interview you now.
Uh-oh.
Do y'all read? Do y'all read? That's where I'm going to stop it. No.
Fair question. Fair question. Just to stop it.
Fair question. I became a dad 10 years ago and promptly stopped reading. No, I have I recently got back into Lone Wolf. Do you remember those game books from the 80s? By Gary Chalk and Joe Deaver. It was like it's like a fantasy. It was like a choose your own fantasy adventure. We had like a role like this. You had a role playing character sheet you brought along with you from book to book. There was there's 30 of them, I think, in that series. And then the fighting fantasy books were I don't know, Warlock of Fire. What is it called? Warlock of Firetop Mountain.
See,
I'm butchering this.
Those types of books, when talking about my childhood, were limited purely to the Goosebumps.
Yeah, there you go.
The Choose Your Own Adventure Goosebumps books.
Yep.
Or what was it? Give Yourself Goosebumps was I think what they were called.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
I think they did evolve the title after a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is kind of exciting to me because I have I started recollecting all those, and I have a big stack of them in my office when I retire. And maybe I'll add these to the stacks when I retire, and for when I retire. So
they'll never go out of they'll never deteriorate. There you go.
Yeah.
They never expire. That's the word I was looking for.
There you go. No app.
All right. Did you know that the 40K in Warhammer 40,000 stood for how much money it costs? Yeah, I saw another joke on TikTok where somebody called it Warhammer 401K.
401K, yep.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
He's like, why am I calling it that? Because you got to pull from your 401K to even afford this stuff.
So the Warhammer community is up in arms because GW came out and said, hey, we're going to, those really expensive minis that everyone's just 3D printing nowadays? We're going to make them more expensive.
Yeah, and more detailed. So they're like so hard to put together now, right?
Uh,
So I have this mech for like to what's the new scale? Like the Warhammer 30K
oh yeah, the epic
Legions
epic scale.
Imperialis.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's 30 pieces each mech and I was like I
Oh my
don't have
gosh.
time to assemble this miniature.
And that thing is probably
And
like this big when it's assembled too, right?
yeah, it's tiny. Yeah. So it's like kind of no point to it.
Yeah, there is some of that, especially like there was one of the regular full up heresy models. The guy's cape had 4 pieces to it. I'm like, this is just
Yeah.
excessive.
Yeah.
And of course, like
Huh.
half the pieces have broken off because they didn't need to.
I have a bunch of axe heads sitting on a shelf right now because of that very phenomenon.
But yeah, so everything else is going up in price, and Warhammer's like, hey, we're gonna do the same thing, and everyone decided to complain because that's kind of where we're at. And it's one of those like GW's not exactly have the greatest PR record, so this was not exactly the best time. This is one of those you just want to like under the like we're just gonna slip this under the wire and say they made a big post about it, and I'm like that was probably the wrong.
Oh yeah, don't announce the annoying stuff that's gonna piss everyone off.
Yeah. Now, granted, we're talking like it's 3 to 5%, so like the $50 box is going to like $52, $53.
Yeah.
But still it has become when like recently when I have people that are interested in like tabletop miniature games, I don't recommend Warhammer because it's hard to be like, oh, they've got like kids that want to learn how to play. Okay, cool. Go spend $150 and that'll give you the smallest army and then see if you like. Whereas like this is pertinent because I've been doing a bunch of because our local store closed, so we have a maker space that I became a part of, and they have a big side bay that I've started like reserving on Saturdays for people to come in and play like BattleTech and stuff like that. And people have been like kind of wandering over and like watching us, kind of like, ooh, what's this sort of thing? Or I've been getting a lot of questions about it. And it's one of those like, people don't even need to buy anything for because usually when people play BattleTech, they're like, we're bringing like our trunks full of stuff. And it's like, I'm going to play with these, 2 to 4 minis, but I got a stack pile over here. So if somebody's like, oh, can I try? I'm like, cool, let me just grab 3 of them at random and cool, here you go. Now you can just play. we're fighting against those people over there. And so there's that. So like, you don't even need to buy anything to just come play. Or if they do want to buy something, it's like, well, for $50, you get the core box that has all the rules, enough minis to play. And oh, by the way, if you want more, they have cardboard standees even in the box for like if the 8 mechs in there aren't enough and you need to fill out your games even more. So it was funny because in our local Discord, everybody was talking about this and complaining back and forth about GW. Meanwhile, I was logging into my backer kit for the BattleTech Kickstarter, and I was paying my like $50 shipping for that. But I was scrolling down and looking at like the giant list of everything I'm getting. I was like, oh yeah, I paid $300, but it's like I'm getting like I took screen captures of it to post it in another channel, and it was like 2 full phone-sized screen caps of like listing out each, like here's this box, this box, this box, and it's just like, man, it is a hard. You really have to be like, I want to play Warhammer these days to like to get into to justify getting into Warhammer.
So when I moved into this house that I'm in right now, I had space to build it. I used to have a like Warhammer table in like 2000. I played like 6th edition, and I was like, I'm gonna get back into it. So I picked up Warcry, and started playing Warcry in our new house in the basement, and then like, and I was like scooping up like people's painted miniatures on eBay, like because like I don't have time to paint. I'm executive of a game company, and I and two kids. So I was doing that, and then one day I like drew up a spreadsheet and like determined how much I'd spent on it. And scenery, which I do like, is its own thing. I love painting scenery and making scenery. So like that has its own hobby quality. So that's not lost time or lost money. But I was like, oh, I spent a lot on. And for not, Warcry's good, but there's other skirmish rule sets that I like as well. So. And you can't use their models for them because they're so weird looking, or they're so in that setting. It's hard to imagine them anywhere else. So
Plus, the rumor going around is they're getting rid of Warcry anyways, and like a lot of the armies that they came out with warbands in Warcry, you can't one of the appeals was like, oh, this is gonna get you interested in Age of Sigmar. Well, a lot of those armies they moved to Legends in Age of Sigmar, which means it's like for casual play only. You can't play organized play with it.
All right, someone come by my house, scoop up some more Warcry figures, leave me some money. It's all good. The other, and what I'll say about BattleTech 2 is, first of all, Alpha, what is it called, Alpha Strike?
Yeah,
is awesome because now like you don't like. I appreciate the old rules, and I like that they're bringing them forward. I like that people can still play that. But like, man, if you got to teach BattleTech, what a great way to get someone into that. I just like that's such a cool system. And then, man, so much easier to paint too. You don't have to paint eyes on a mech. They're gonna camouflage. I don't know if you want to call that camouflage. They're gonna like, like all of one house is gonna have the same color. So like, that's a really easy place to start. You get really good at highlighting and dry brushing that color scheme. That's perfect. That's what I need. I'm gonna go over to that then.
yeah. The BattleTech or my tester minis. Whenever I want to try painting a new technique, because it's like it doesn't matter if mercenary. It can be a one-off looking, random looking color mech. So it's like
maybe that guy just painted it however he felt like. Yeah.
So when I want to practice something, like that's how I practice camo using a BattleTech mech. And using makeup sponges to do the different the patterns and stuff on it. Which is funny, you were talking about Alpha Strike, but we actually don't play Alpha Strike. We play Classic.
It's okay. I'll allow it.
Alpha Strike, to me, Alpha Strike's too close to like all the other minis games that are out there.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So, but talk about bringing back stuff from the past. If a cowboy takes his shoes off and puts them back on, is that considered rebooting? So this one kind of came out of nowhere, at least for me, for not paying attention to this space, which you should have, because it should have been, because I'm in some like dead CCG groups on Facebook just because some of the posts are really cool. But apparently the Warlord CCG is back. So there's a reboot that's fully funded at over 255,000 people. So Philip, did you ever heard or play the Warlord CCG?
This does not sound familiar at all.
Okay, I was trying to remember. I had heard of it, but I've never played it. Patrick, had you played it at all or heard of it?
No, I have no exposure to this one. I was in college during the big CCG boom.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any money. I didn't have any money to play cards.
Dang it! This one didn't have the.
And I was really into role playing.
Kickstarter on it. Yeah, so it's this. It was 12 years ago was when the game came out. So that would have. Well, wait, 12 years ago. I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that was the 90s, but then I just realized no, that's like 2012. That's like.
It's 2012.
That's like 2012.
That was the year the world was supposed to end,
like
but we're all still here.
Yeah, it was 2012.
I think 12 years ago was the middle of the pandemic. What are y'all talking about?
Right.
Fair. So apparently, not that long ago, there was a CCG called Warlord, and now it's gone over and rebooted on the Kickstarter, fully funded. It's in addition to the
In
6.
5 minutes, it said.
That's what happens when you have a dedicated fan base. 6 ready-to-play starter decks and booster boxes, a box of greed, playmats, dice accessories, and dragon shield sleeves to their Kickstarter. Includes over 50 cards reprinted from earlier sets and is aimed at helping newer players get into the non-rotating Ancients format and their multiplayer Alliances format. So, and of course, they're dedicating to like, we're not going to use AI artists because everybody pretty much has to at this point. Yeah, so this was 2 days ago, and they said they sit at $288,000. So no idea what they're sitting at now. I may conveniently take a look real quick.
360.
360. Wow.
861 backers.
That's pretty good.
23 days to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep. This must have been. You know what? I recognize the name and I recognize the graphic design, but that's about it. I didn't play, but it sounds like basically a new. Some people involved with the game basically started a new company and kind of got the rights to the IP and are relaunching it. Which, I mean, that's kind of like one of the good sides of the environment we're in, where if you've got people passionate enough that you could just keep. I mean, heck, look at the Netrunner group that have just like kept Netrunner or it was Nisei and they changed it to something else, System Null or something like that. Null System Games, I think is what it is now. Where they're keeping Netrunner alive even after Fantasy Flight, and then it's everybody talks about like, oh, Kickstarter's bad, things, you hear all these stories.
There was only one of it.
What?
I'm looking through the the all gone stuff.
Pledge level.
Yes, a $10,000 pledge level.
That was them
There was
backing it
only
to make
one.
sure that it funded. Sweet, we have 360 now. I can unback that.
Yeah, that would. An entire booster case.
Oh yeah, so you can.
Yeah, I mean, there's a vanity thing in there too, right? The custom card.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Philip, don't you want to get your own yourself into a game? That sounds like it's right up your alley.
Yeah. Let me go. I'm gonna need your kidney, my kidney.
And what's left of my 401k?
Yeah, that one too.
Well, actually, you won't need it if you looked at our next story, which is if you were wondering whether or not there was going to be a Magic the Gathering story this week, then load us. Get to the next story. So apparently, if you really want a Black Lotus, all it takes is $3 million. If you have a Black Lotus that's in pristine condition, it could be worth $3 million.
Could be worth 3. Jeez.
You could start a game company for what it costs. But yeah, so one of the most expensive card games, or one of the most expensive, well, the statement still stands, but cards recently was the One Ring that, like, what was it?
Oh yeah.
What's his name bought for $2 million?
Yeah, the guy who found it sold it to
I get it.
Post Malone. Yeah, I forgot.
Post
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Post Malone bought the $2 million 1-for-1 card, but now that's been topped. The most expensive Magic card, or most expensive card ever, is $3 million for a Black Lotus. Magic the Gathering's single most famous card has returned to the top of the expensive cardboard pile thanks to a private auction where someone paid a soul-squeezing $3 million for a copy considered to be in perfect condition. So, yeah. 7-figure transaction with an online collector who goes by Benjamin.be. Resubmitted Black Lotus is the most expensive card ever sold.
I'm just reading
so apparently, like, even among Black Lotuses, given the age of the card, this condition was like in the top of the top. As far somebody opened this with gloves on and immediately like sealed it in carbonite, basically.
Uh-huh. I mean, I'm just reading the like no blemishes in the ink.
Yeah.
Corners and edges are flawless. Like,
Which not even the 1 of 1 card was. Like, I don't know if y'all
Right.
remember the person that opened up the one. It was rated a 9 out of 10, not a 10 out of 10. So like
Whoops.
even pristine out of the pack, like there was some printing defects on that 1 of 1 card that made it a 9 out of 10. So that just goes to show you that, like, I don't know how you, like, I don't know how you know back then to, like, you
to
basically have
save
to have,
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
well, not even that, because it's like you have to have not opened it. Like, this card has probably never touched a human skin, like, for it to be
Time
still in
Traveler.
that great quality. Like, it's pretty much never. It's only been handled with like gloves and whatnot.
It's Time Traveler. That's what it was.
Probably that's
That's what it was.
probably what it was.
That's what people you know, Warren Buffett's got that standing order. If you get a perfect March Madness bracket, he'll pay you some outrageous amount of money.
I did
That's a
not
time
know that was a
traveler
thing.
That's a time traveler trap. That's what it is.
Gotcha.
So then he can interview about stocks.
Exactly.
You know,
That's why he's doing it.
yeah. You know, somebody. It was funny when I was in college. I had an economics professor that used to say he had a bit where it was like, I can economically prove that time travel isn't real, because basically kind of talking about if you were time travel and you were greedy, you would just keep going back in time and getting money and investing it over and over. And he said the problem with that is it would get to the point, and if enough people did it, the interest rate would go to like 0. And since the interest rate had never gone to 0, then that was and then what was it? It was like during the pandemic, I think the interest rate went to damn near 0. And so I was like, time travel proven.
I have a friend who boxed a bunch of legends in, what have that been, like 1998, 1997? And dug them out recently and sold them. And he was like, yeah, I like kind of paid off most of the rest of my mortgage. I was like, neat. Good for you.
Yeah, it's sort of this, like, you always think about it like, oh, this is gonna be worth money, and then most of the time it's not. And then sometimes you like forget about it and it just goes into a box in the attic, and then you happen to be cleaning stuff out like, holy crap, I kept this?
Yeah.
And even then you're like, this might be worth money, thinking it's like, I could get $100 for this.
And he didn't even like Magic that much, so it was like not even that big, like no nostalgia lost, right? It was just like,
Yeah.
oh, here. Yeah. Oh.
So, not going to go into a Patreon plug today, but I will say head over to the Discord, boardsandswords.com/Discord. Check it out. We got a bunch of cool stuff in there. A lot of notices about, we'll post up news stories. We'll post up sales and stuff when they go on there. It's a fun time, and make sure you post a picture of your pets whenever you get in. It's the pet tax, as we like to call
You
it.
can see my dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
That's the reason to go.
With that, we'll turn back to Patrick. And when was it that Vast I'm trying to. This is what I was going to say before. My first impression of Leader Games was that first Gen Con where Vast was on sale.
Yeah.
And what was that? Was that 2016?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Yep. 2016. Summer 2016.
Like I by no means an expert, but it was just like everybody was talking about this game Vast. It was just like kind of popping up and like selling off the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there,
and then I ran out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so that was the summer 2016. We had gosh, like the summer of 2014, I discovered a work in progress thread on Board Game Geek by David Somerville, who's the original designer. And it was funny because I was working on a dungeon crawler, which I've come back to since then occasionally. And I was like talking to somebody I tapped to be the graphic designer of it, who's interested in game design. And we'd gotten into an argument about how to build the tiles that were going to make the game board. And so this is like, I'm just gonna look at work in progress on BG and see if anyone else is like kind of experimenting with this problem, which was like, in retrospect, was kind of a long shot. I'm
Yeah.
sure there weren't actually many games that use tiles to build a dungeon. It's really inefficient from a game feel perspective, and so then I discovered David's thread about it, and first of all, I was like, damn, I mean, this is better than anything I'm gonna do with this concept. So I'm just going to shelve that. That's all good. And I was really impressed with it, and I was really impressed with the way he was using the crowd to kind of. He's working with them. People are very excited about it. His crowdfunding was still new, so we're still kind of exploring how to get an audience. And I made him an offer, like probably a week later for the game. I said, I don't even want to be designer. I just want this game to be published, and I don't even necessarily need to be the publisher. I just want to see this game made. Like, this is a cool design. You got to get this going. And he said they had 3 companies that were interested in it that had published games, not just game. And so he said, I'll contact you if they all come up negative. So I didn't hold my breath. So I started working on another game with him, another asymmetric game with him, that you can see some of the bones of in my other designs later on. And we kept talking, we stayed in touch, and I kept helping him. Like, he would come to me and ask for advice on how to pitch and how to talk to publishers and things like that, which I kind of had a little bit of experience with, but not a ton. And eventually he came back around that December and said, I'm just like, the people that have it on their desks aren't really playing it. It's not really getting the traction I was expecting it to get. So why don't you take over? Why don't you be the publisher? And so I took it home. I played it 5 times in the first 48 hours. I had it on my desk.
Wow.
Yeah, I was really committed. And in retrospect, I think in some ways, if I hadn't touched it, I think there was still some great concepts there, and it was really well made. There was just some things that were just going to need development. And so I kind of, I started over with the concept, and I saved as much as I could, and then redesigned it and worked on it from there. Yeah, we did that Kickstarter in the fall of 2015, and did okay. It was, brought in, I think, 148,000. Like, most of it the last weekend.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. No, it was about 20-30% of it. Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was just saying was that the first campaign? Because was your first game done through Kickstarter? Was Vast the first crowdfunding campaign?
So I had published 2 games before Vast. I had published a game through James Manthe's Minion Games called Five Fingered Severance, which don't look it up. It's not a good game, and it didn't go very far. And then but I kind of picked up from James in that first Gen Con I went with him. I realized that the important part to making a game was selling it. And so I watched him work and learned how he worked and learned how he did things. And then kind of based my how I approached the Trick or Treat Kickstarter. So I had Kickstarted Trick or Treat before Vast, and that did $3,500 over the course of its campaign, which was cool actually, because what it did for me is, at the time I was working as a database administrator or analyst, and if I made a mistake, I could fix it. For $3,000, I could figure out how to fix it. But now if I make a mistake, I have to go talk to the bank, and so I was able to learn the whole process in a very low stress environment. And then when it came time to do Vast, I was ready to do it. So Vast was it was the first game that took off, and it did well. Yeah, and then we got to that Gen Con, and I taught, just by a stroke of luck, I was able to teach Tom Vassell how to play it the day before the convention started, the evening before the convention started. He was exhausted, and I don't think he wanted to learn the rules. And he said, normally I don't let designers teach me how to play the game, but we flew this morning, and I want to play this, so I taught him how to play it. Really high pressure situation.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But we got through it. All his friends were there, and it was funny too because it was like I hadn't really had much exposure to people playing games outside of my own group and outside of a kind of not. I mean, they're friendly, but like just a very intimate environment, and like
Yeah.
they were all kind of like in a mood, and I thought, oh man, they hated it, and it turned out he really liked it. It was just he was just tired, and
Right.
he's in public, and so like and they're all serious thinkers about when they're playing games. So I like the impression was I was like, oh my god, that wasn't good. And then and then at the top of his show on Saturday, they said, Tom, what have you liked about Gen Con so far? And he said, Vast Crystal Caverns. And then David Somerville, the original designer, was in the audience for that broadcast, and he just texted me and said, you're going to sell out in the next few minutes. And as soon as the show was over, we had a line, just a huge mob came and picked up all the rest of them. So it was
How
great.
was it before that though? Before the because since that was Saturday.
Yeah. No, we were doing fine, and we were selling out what we had supplied for the day, and it wasn't even like we didn't sit there like it wasn't like Fantasy Flight where like, oh, we can only sell 1,000 today because we brought 4,000 to the show. It was just we only could get that many into the booth, and so we'd sell them all, and they'd be like, well, come back tomorrow because I need time to restock it because I'd have to run out to where our supply was and bring them in and restock it, and you can't really. It's kind of frowned on to restock during the day at the show. We may have done a little, and so yeah, so we were really cooking, and I figured we were going to sell all 500 at the show, and in fact, because we brought 500. In fact, I had 500 left in the warehouse, and the Saturday morning before we sold out, before he said that, before it really went crazy. Fortunately, I went to my website and set up free shipping for people at the show, and sold their other 500. Like,
wow.
at the show through pre-orders. By like Tuesday after people got home at the show, like everything I had left was gone. So I had sent out about I'd sent out a few thousand. I printed 5,000. I sent out a few thousand during the like all the backers got their copies, and then I sold about 1,000 at the show.
That's awesome. And apparently, according to the chat, back then wasn't it called Trove?
It was called Trove.
I
Yeah.
say, imagine if it had stayed as Trove, then you would have had the option of 5-letter titles.
Yeah. So there is a game company. It's a video game company, and their lawyers were just trolling Kickstarter.
Oh.
And they called us, and they were like, "You can't use the name Trove." And my lawyer is like, "Yeah, we can. No problem. That's no problem." But he was like. He came to me and he's like, how do you want to do this? We can litigate this for a few months and I'll win. Because, I mean, it's just a title. You can there could be another video game called Trove. And there's no brand confusion between it and a board game. It's fine. You're going to win. Hey, so you want to spend 6 months litigating that, or you want to publish this game? And I was like, well, I guess I gotta publish the game. So we started searching for a new title. And as soon as I said Vast, the Crystal Caverns, I texted David and I was like, I think it's going to be called Vast. And I from that moment on, it was Vast in my head. I never thought twice about it being Trove at that point. But yeah, we got that. I think it's still on Steam. You can go look at it. You can go mock them if you'd like.
It's still probably in Steam early development.
Early access. No, it was
Yeah.
actually it's like an MMO, like what's Minecraft called? That style.
The creative kind of.
Yeah, but it's like that, but that voxel. It's that voxel style gameplay. So, yeah, it's still out there. You can still buy it.
Gotcha. And then there was there was a follow up. There was the Haunted Mansion.
Yep, the Mysterious Manor.
Mysterious Manor. That was it.
Yeah. So I started designing Mysterious Manor at the time. So I as luck would have it, I actually lost my job. I left my job. Well, yeah, I would say I left my job. I left my job in 2015 and worked on Vast for a few months exclusively. And then I got back to work right around the time I was getting ready for the Kickstarter. And and so I started designing Vast and Mysterious Manor in my notes, like during the long commute. It was in downtown Minneapolis, so I had to bus. In every day, and so I started working on the Mysterious Manor. and then kind of shelved it for a couple of years. And then when when the company was like, okay, we're ready to make a sequel to Fast, we picked up Mysterious Manor. So yeah, high hopes. So I was hoping that like I could make a series out of it that was like all the pieces were compatible, but I just didn't have the tools back then to make it so that there'd be a through line that you could play any hero in any setting, and any monster in any setting, and any setting, and any army in any setting, and any spoiler in any setting. But I just couldn't. I just didn't have the development talent or the skills to do it myself back then. So it was
So
it wasn't
apparently
as
we need a
compatible
vast
as I
we
wanted
need
to
a
be.
vast second edition.
Well, yeah.
that
And that is a topic of conversation at the office every time we're pitching new products.
I want to
is,
see where one person can play the house and one person plays the cavern.
At the same time,
same
mashed together. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that was the coolest part about Vast. Because it's like, there's a lot of dungeon crawly games, and I'm sure you have one where somebody's playing like the boss. But not only do
Right.
you have the boss, but you actually have the cavern itself is trying. You can play as.
It was the coolest part about selling it at the con, because I'd be like, it's asymmetric. We all play different parts of the story, and someone's going to be the knight, and you're playing the, it's like this. It's the art. It's the, it's Talisman, or it's Dungeon Quest, or it's like it's the game you've played before, and then it's like, but someone's going to play the goblins who's trying to stop the knight. It's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, so that's what you expect, right? That's what you just said, is like someone's going to play the opposing force. And I was like, but the thing that the knight's trying to kill, the dragon, is also played by another player, which was in an earlier cut of David's Rules. The dragon was summoned by the goblins and then was on the goblin team. So I was like, someone plays dragons. And then what would happen is you'd see people, like, there'd be like someone who really likes dragons. Like, like 1 in 20 people at Gen Con really like dragons. And so you could see their face would light up a little bit, like, oh, I could be a dragon in a board game. That's cool. Sign me up for that. And then I'd be like, and someone actually plays as the dungeon, sets up the map, manipulates events inside the dungeon to try and prolong the game, to make it satisfying for everybody in a way that then they can start to collapse the cave and win themselves. And sometimes people would still be like, so the cave can win. I'm like, yeah, the cave can totally win. And that's like everybody, like, the other 19 out of 20 people would just be like, oh, okay, that's cool. And that's, people talk about the joke about the elevator pitch, and I was on the elevator at the Sheraton explaining to someone at Gen Con, and the guy was like, I want to buy that, and I sold it to him on the elevator. So, so it was the little elevator pitch. I know the elevator pitch is more for licensing a product, but
right.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but no, I sold one, so it was good.
And then, of course, there was the behemoth called Root.
Yeah. So, so we, I had pitched, and I, like when I was working with Dave, I had been working on a game where there was like this army of dwarves, and there was trolls out in the woods, and there was a giant stepping on them, which I'm reusing in a game right now. And so what I did was I kind of pitched, like, what if there was a world where we use this asymmetric concept, but we move forward with, like, it's empires and armies fighting each other. It's not just individuals, and so it's more like an asymmetric take on a war game. And Cole, who is starting as developer right around then, which is hilarious because he's never did any. Yeah, I mean, he did plenty of development, but like the majority of his career has been design at Leader Games. For the majority of his time at Leader Games has been design, and so he said, I want to take a crack at this, and I want to try designing this. So yeah, I came to him and I said, we can just, it'll be like elves and humans and wizards, like that's like, and then maybe an adventure for where the vagabond was. And so we kind of started with a very fantasy theme, and we thought it would just be like, like a continuance of the vast kind of universe or the vast kind of story. So then, like, Kyle, the artist who we're going to use for all our projects, said, I really don't want to draw another fantasy game right now. I'm kind of tapped out on that concept. Uh, and so we started to explore like there's plenty of other ways we could take that space and use it in different environments. And so one of the things he did was he and I had been working on a game called Path back then, which was going to be it was a continuance of that giants and the dwarves and the trolls and the other creatures in that world. And so he pitched that we would do anthropomorphic animals, which is what, like, if you look at Kyle's early career, he still does draw a lot of anthropomorphic animals. And so Cole just happened to see a page of that Kyle had drawn, because he's like, I'm going to send you some things for my portfolio. One of them was this page for Path. And I think at the time it was actually called like Grimthorn or something like that. So it was before we had stuck to the 4-letter concept. But it was Path recently. And so he looked at those anthropomorphic animals. And he's like, this is what we're going to do. Like, this is the way that Root's going to form. And so we started working on Root in that direction. And I think he had to be honest, I think he had already kind of conceived that he was anthropomorphic animals, because he had read like Redwall and Mouse Guard. Yeah, which is literally right there. And so like I think he had kind of an inkling he wanted to go that direction. And then when he saw Kyle's art, he was like, okay, this is what we're gonna do with this. And so of course it worked beautifully. It looks so good. Kyle, for every project, Kyle kind of reinvents how he draws things. If you look at his style very closely, he changed to kind of his line weight when he was working on Root, so that it has a very, like, if a drawing is in the Root universe, because I can tell, like, when I look at his art, which universe it's supposed to be in before I even start looking at the subject. And so he kind of reinvented how he was drawing for Root and built that style around it, and it was really good. And then my favorite thing to say about it then is what happened then was, I think, at the time, we kind of hit at the right moment, because I feel like people were starting to get a little tired of, and I'm not pooping on Euro design, but I feel like people were just getting kind of tired of the, like, what are you doing in this game? Well, I'm getting the most points. Okay, how do you get the most points in this game? Well, I'm building a castle. Okay, how do you, like both Vast, which is like, hey, I'm going to kill a dragon. There's no points. I'm going to kill a dragon.
Right.
And then so Root kind of tapped in the energy of like, or definitely tapped in the energy of like, it's very direct and to the point, and it's not getting the most points. It does come down to points, but it still has such a great connection with the narrative and the theme that the points, you're like, well, yeah, someone's was winning because they control half the map. And that's giving them the points that they need to win. And so that, I think, so we hit just at the right moment that a lot of people are like, either in two camps, that they're like, oh, this game has a lot of cute animals and it's cute, and we kind of trick people into playing a war game.
Yeah.
Or they looked at the competition, they looked at the conflict in it, and they said, maybe that is what we want. And since it's not Nazis fighting U.S. soldiers that maybe are relatives, not the Nazis, but the Americans or the English, then so it isn't tragic. Like, I look, when I play war games, I'm always like, God, this was somebody's life, like that happened to them. But with the animals, I can put that all in a box and say, yeah, the cats, and maybe the cats and the birds aren't even killing each other. Maybe they're just driving each other off. I can put, since it's in a cartoon world, I can put that all in a box, and I can play a war game. Of course, I play war games however I want, but yeah, like, I think a lot of people, like, that really resonated with them. Where they're playing Euros to avoid conflict, now they can play a conflict game. So I think between those two, we just hit the audience just right at that moment. I don't even, like, I think Root could do well today, but I think we just hit it so well at that moment that it worked really well for them.
Yeah, you kind of tied into this, but I was, as you were talking, I was thinking that around that time there was some people maybe a little bit worn out with Euros, but there was also, we were kind of hitting the peak of, like, I would say probably like peak CMON, where it
Sure.
like think like Blood Rage and Rising Sun and like all these, like, the miniatures on a map kind of, violent style games, and then I feel like that we were starting to get a little bit exhaustion from that too, to where
Mhm.
Root has it's not a bunch of plastic minis that you're paying 2 tons of
Mhm.
money for,
Mhm.
and B, it's that same kind of like war game aspect, but cute animals for
Yeah.
that same reasons that you're talking about.
And so Vast had used meeples also, but there are miniatures for it, and that was later. And I like, to me, like the shape and the silhouette of the characters, and that, like, one of Kyle's strengths is he designs his characters so that they're very active and doing something. And so, like, all the silhouettes of all the characters in Vast and then later in Root, like, kind of communicate something to the audience about what that character's like, with just a really simple shape. And I think there are people who play Root with miniatures, and I'm just like, I mean, you do what you want to do, but, like, I also think, like, man, it's so iconic and so simple to look at and translate what the meeple means or does or who that is, for me. And I think that also, you're right, that really connected with a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, the only that I will say that I saw some that were basically like 3D versions of some of Kyle's art, sort of
Hmm.
thing, and those I
Hmm.
was like, ooh, that would be awesome to play. I tried to see if I could quickly find them, but I have it right now. But yeah, I do remember seeing like of one set of minis being like, ooh, that looks pretty cool. Here's
Yeah, so we allow a guy made them, like, Dick Pullen. He designed the miniatures, and we licensed it, so he's allowed, as long as they're not being sold. So he's allowed to distribute the STLs. People can print them themselves. They pop up on Etsy or on, it's that other place, Alibaba or
oh
whatever.
yeah.
And we have to go after them then, unfortunately. So,
Also, I did not realize that there are root pumpkin carving instructions,
yep.
and so now I know what my pumpkins next year are gonna be.
Yeah, and the in the comments, Duke Azil is right. Root was published before Vast of Street Spinner.
Ah,
It
okay.
was once Root went to the printer, we were like, well, now what? And then we started working on Vast.
I There's the timeline between like release and when the Kickstarter aired, so trying to remember like which Kickstarter came before which printing. So I thought I
Yeah.
remembered the one game, but oh yeah. But more, I mean, it seems like for a while, there was like Leader Games was just the root company,
Yeah.
and
And we still get that a lot.
but now it seems like within the past 4 years, we've now got
Mhm.
tons of games where,
Mhm.
uh, Fort, which is probably my favorite deck building style game, um, especially like once you add in the cats. I mean,
Mhm.
that was what's like. I played Fort without it, but then I found out there was a Cats and Dogs expansion, and I was like, okay, now I really have to play this game more.
Such an interesting expansion because it's like the amount of text on the cards. There are some people who really, really dig it. Like, they're like, yeah, it's like it just gives Fort that extra little push over the complexity bubble he needed, to get higher, to feel like I'm learning or whatever's going on there. And then like I played it with my family, and I'm like, yeah, we're just gonna play with the base set next time. So,
any game,
and
any game
it's a
where
hard deck
pizza
builder.
is a resource is
Hmm.
a okay with me.
Yeah. Yeah, that was Grant Rodiak who designed that. He is a software engineer for, are they still called Maxis? The folks that make The Sims. And so he's worked on a lot on The Sims 4, and I believe he's working on Sims 5.
But let's skip forward because I mean, like most people are familiar enough with those, but you've got a lot in the works as we were talking about beforehand, like Arcs
Yep.
probably is the most you were
Yep.
saying on the horizon, right?
Yeah. So right now, imminent, looming, a current threat. So we are Arcs. We sent to the printer a little bit for Lunar New Year, which is or more. People say Chinese New Year. And so it's like in February when all the factories in China shut down, and so you have to kind of plan your production schedule around because they will not, most factories will not start a project. I think in the U.S. if you said we're going to shut this factory down for a week, you'd still be doing production the day before things shut down, and they just pick up where you left off when you get back, where possible, of course, in industrial process. But in the Chinese planning, they if they're going to close for 3 weeks in February, then that means everything they're doing has to be wrapped up, on February 20th. And so they got most of the core sets printed, all the core sets printed right before Lunar New Year, and then picked up. But they actually did start printing. They got the campaign box sets to a certain point. They're printing those, and so they've been coming into the warehouse all throughout April and all throughout May, and we're just getting ready to start shipping them very soon. Very, very excited. That is a huge. It's not just the excitement of you having it; it is also a ton of stress, a lot of weight on my shoulders. And it's interesting because I have a very executive job at this point, and so I don't like. It isn't like I'm like calling the shipping company and dealing with that. I have someone to deal with that for me, but there's still just a lot. There's just so many pieces moving right now, and to know that that's kind of on time is I'm pretty excited about
Oh,
that.
it has to be, yeah. Now
Yeah.
I know it's it's a 4X game, but does Arcs is it asymmetric like some of the other games, or
So what Arcs does is there's two ways to play it. Out of the box, there's just like a solo session mode that people can they get you get a leader I haven't honestly, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry, I haven't actually played Arcs in a while because it's been in production for so long. So you start out with a little bit variable player power, so your position's a little bit different than the other players, and they were designed in a way that will cause a lot kind of an asymmetry in the faction positions during the game. But the real thrust of the asymmetry is that as when you have the campaign box set, which is the expansion for the game, you start out playing a chapter of Arcs, which is like basically equivalent to a single session. It's a little bit shorter, and then when you finish the game, you draft roles into the game, or that will change your position with the other players, and then you'll continue doing that throughout the. So you play a second game, and then you play a third game, and so by the end of that, your empire it's kind of an emergent asymmetry, and so you can see very different player positions by the end of it. The last game I saw in the office before we sent it to the printer, someone was hiding buried treasure on the map and trying to keep it safe from the other players because they'd become this like pirate, like king sort of role, and it was really tense and lovely because you didn't know which where the treasure was, and there was tokens that I hadn't even seen before, like on the board that represented where the treasure could be buried. Like it was all, you put down 6 tokens and one of them has the treasure and 5 of them don't, and so like the other players are trying to figure it out, and it was very tense for that player. So so it kind of emerges into it, and then at the end of the third session, you determine who the winner is, and then you can roll back to that starting state and go through it again.
nice. Let's see. I would almost say, Philip, this is your right up your alley. Except for, as we found out when we got Philip to try Root in the digital aspect, he's not a fan of the asymmetric.
Oh,
Yeah, like knowing that I'm the only person who's playing this way is I don't know, I can't be like, hey Chris, how am I supposed to do this? And you're like, I don't know. You're playing with cards, I'm playing with dice.
yeah, it's not that asymmetric, but the other thing I like about the campaign too is the way you select the actions that you take each turn is kind of based on a trick taking mechanic where you'll lead with a card, and then the other players can follow with their cards. They can try and play a higher number, become the next turn's like first player. They can also like just lay down a card and say it's like they can follow with a card that isn't higher, and just they only get one icon of the action to activate. And then they can also just lay down any suit and say I'm actually gonna do this, and they only get one icon of that suit. And then some of the other roles will introduce new suits to that deck, which I don't know how Cole got through that. It's bonkers to me that he was able to design that. So it's pretty cool. I'm very excited to play it. I've been trying to set up a game on Thursday nights on TTS with my friends, and I just keep bombing every Thursday night. But I got to play a lot more games for Gen Con because I'm going to be ready.
And then let's see, what else we got? We got Ahoy.
Yes. So Ahoy is our high sea adventure, and it is from. Oh my God! Come on, you got this, Patrick. I'm having a hell. I'm in the middle of allergy season, so my brain is just shot right now.
Gotcha.
Greg Loring Albright is the designer, and he brought us this game, and we took it over and developed it and moved it into kind of this also anthropomorphic animals, but not the same universe as Root. And and so it's asymmetric, but all the players will roll dice to generate what their actions are going to be, and they place dice onto their player board to determine what they're going to do on their turn. They put 2 dice on per turn, they roll 4 dice around, and so on. And so 2 of the players are playing kind of an area control game with each other. So you have to have each tile that the map is made up of has a die in the center of it, shows how many points it's worth at the end of each round. And the player that has the most pieces, between the blue and the yellow player, will have control of it. It has the most pieces on each map section. Will have control of that map section, and we'll take control of that map section for that round and score the points on it. And then the other 2 players are both playing smugglers then, and you can play 2-player. It's great with 2-player, but as you add 3 and 4, add smugglers on. And then the smugglers, as they move around the board, then whenever they deliver cargo, they raise the value of that region. That's why it's a die. We can wind it up 1. And so then it becomes kind of like, I usually adopt kind of like, am I going to play wide and kind of like as the blue player try and control the regions that are worth less but control more of them, or am I going to try and just focus on those few regions that are worth more and try and control those. And so the smuggler player then is kind of able to control the tempo of the game a little bit by generating what points the other players are going to get from as they play. And so then back in last fall we ran a Kickstarter for an expansion for it, which we no, if we thought we were going to do an expansion. I know Greg pitched one to us, but we decided to go our direction with it, and so we made a new blue and yellow faction. The blue faction kind of represents like imperial authority, and they just have a fleet of ships from an imperial power that's controlling the map. The yellow faction in both expansions represents kind of like a rebellion. And so now we have the Shellfire Rebellion, who is flinging turtles onto islands and trying to control islands. And it's great. It's a very, so like, it took kind of the simple elegance of the base yellow faction and said, what if we kind of turned it up a little bit and made your decisions a little bit harder, and worked on that space. So it's working very well. We're also, I think we announced it. God, I hope we did. But we did. I'm pretty certain we did. So we added rules in for playing a team game where 2 players play both the blue factions and 2 players play both the yellow factions, and so then you can interact that way with each other. And then also in that Kickstarter, it was on BackerKit. So BackerKit, there was the Coral Cap Pirates who are trying to build up crews in their boats. They're driving boats around and interacting with each boat. They have a bunch of little boats that interact with the game in different ways. And then there's this giant Leviathan who runs around the map eating the other players' pieces and getting points for that. And it's pretty slick. So yeah, I'm really I'm really proud of the work Nick did on it. Nick was the designer for the expansion, and he's almost done. And then we'll send that to the printer very soon. It's doing very good.
See, Philip, I feel like even if it's asymmetric, but if we just say like, we're gonna play this game, your job is just to go around eating everybody on the map. I feel like you'd still be okay.
I'm there. I'm there. Give me a job.
So that's what I like about asymmetric design, like Root, is because you don't have to worry about like. It's funny, like your weakness is my strength because now I'm like, I can just focus on eating pieces, and I can police the game through eating pieces. Like I know how to interact with the world. I'm okay. I can just do this thing, and I'll be all right. And then maybe after a few games, I'll learn how to police the other roles. But I'm not gonna worry about it too much.
So, Dukeazil says, I'm sure someone somewhere is working on a leader game shared universe theory, like the Pixar theory.
That's please stop. So yeah, so we did so that's off. And then coming up, Cole has pitched us like a way to expand the Oath universe, which we're working on right now. He's working on right now, and it's great because we're taking work from a lot of people in the company. Like some people working on cards for kind of they're kind of working on a single session because Oath is based on a kind of a chronicle of games that work together,
right?
To tell one whole story. And so like we're kind of working on like kind of a lighter, like kind of single session version of the game that could be used to teach people and maybe cuts down on the asymmetry a lot. And so we had a lot of cards designed from that. Like we had like 60 new Denizen cards designed from that. So we're bringing that in. And like Josh and Nick have been able to like come in and kind of consult on the design, but mostly it's Cole. Cole's been working on the design, and so he's been adding stuff. He's been adding components to add like a player will be able to develop like has kind of a lineage, so their character will represent a family of like a multi-generational family that has been developing their abilities throughout history, and so. That'll be in there, and there will be like a phase to make kind of cleanup of the game. I was, as Cole says, it was kind of a product of the pandemic because we were playing Oath on TTS, and so people had automated this like setup for the next game, and so that I don't think we saw how like challenging it was going to be for people to learn how to set up the next game, and until it was published. And so we're kind of working on this new he's working on this new chronicle system where one player will decide like kind of the fate of like one part of the game, and someone will decide what's going to happen to the deck, and someone's going to decide what happens to like the sites on the map and stuff like that. And it just makes it a lot. It gives the players control over it, even if there is no game effect necessarily for deciding to go one way or another. It's just what sort of story you want to tell. And then it does that, and it just speeds that process up for the players, so they can get back to the next game faster.
I am curious. So, granted, I have not paid. The amount of board game podcasts I listen to is not as much as has in the past, but I feel like when Oath first came out and finally got released, there wasn't as much. It seemed like there was a lot of reviewers that I heard that this isn't a general that weren't fans of it. What has been kind of the reception that y'all have seen, from people, maybe not necessarily, but people talking to you at like conventions and stuff about Oath?
Yeah, so we have, like what'll happen is people will come up. So when you're playing Oath, there is this supplement or this optional piece you can get for it, where you get like a leather journal that accompanies the game, and you can document your chronicle inside of that journal. And I think that's also, we're going to kind of like try and formalize that a little bit more. And so some people just make these beautiful drawings, very lavish descriptions of what happened during the game. And so one of the cool parts about going to a show right now is people will come up and they'll show us this like 10, 20 I think we talked to somebody who's played it 50 times in the same chronicle.
Wow.
Yeah, and geez, I probably played Vast 450 times because I had to. Like I haven't played Oath 50 times since it was released. And so they'll come up to us and they'll show us these beautiful books that they've made about their chronicle and what happened during their chronicle and what changed about the world during their chronicle. And and so and so I think that's what we're seeing and that's what we're responding to is the groups that are like doing that sort of work. It's like seeing, so like maybe the reviewers bounced off of it, and I get like, because you're not seeing the depth of the story that's coming out of it, because and no fault of your own, it's just the economics of the process. You have to play it once or twice and then make a review, and so you're not seeing the full picture maybe. But we do have these very loyal fans that are seeing the entire thing, and I'm not expecting anyone to play it 50 times. That surprised me, but that is happening. And like, so if you look at, so we announced the Kickstarter, and you look at the growth of of our last campaign, which was Arcs. I mean, our last big campaign, which was Arcs, and then Ahoy's growth, like the expansion's growth, as you saw, because now you can watch people sign up to be notified when the thing comes out. And it's about half of what it was for Arcs, but considering Arcs was a new flagship product, and and to date it's about half, and with the popularity of Oath and how it didn't quite get its release show because it came out during the pandemic, I'm pretty delighted by where we're at. Like I'm really excited about how well the audience has embraced it, and I think we have 3,800, 3,900 people signed up to be notified when it's released, which in itself is a great crowdfunding campaign. Like if that's all they did, I'd be pretty excited about that. So and we're that's just pre-sign up, so we'll get more than that when the game comes out, or when it goes to Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's almost like the Oath is almost like an anti-reviewer game, because and that's the way, like, when I talked about it, it's because I'm the kind of gamer where I'm not going to play necessarily previous to Warhammer 40,000. I'm not the kind of player that's going to play like one game all the
Right.
time. I'm going to play, I like to jump around, and it's like I played this game once or twice, what's next?
Right.
And Oath is not that kind of game. Oath is, like you said, you need to sink your teeth in. It's it's a 5-course meal.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, and it's because it hits a lot of there's a lot of good stuff in there. Like the presentation, it's a very deluxe game, which usually ticks my boxes because
Right.
components I'm huge on, and the card style of that was the thing that impressed me the most, was the way that you taught the game through the cards and the setup. Like flip
Mhm.
this card over, now put these pieces on the board, then flip the next card over, and okay, now I'm going to show you this other thing. Like I really liked that.
Right. We had that for Root also, and I've led groups of 20 tables through it at conventions, so it worked pretty well. I liked it. Yeah. So it was one of the things that was curious to me, because I was like, I grew up on games. I'm 49 now, and I played Euros before there were Euros. Like I played Survive in the 80s, which made it over by some miracle, which is a Euro. Because it has the properties of Euro, in that you cannot go, unlike Monopoly or Risk, where you can exchange money or you can exchange territory. Once a part of the island sinks and Survive, it's gone. It's never going to come back. That state is never going to exist in the game again. And to me, that's like one of the hallmarks of the early Euros. Like once you put a road down in Catan, you can never pick up that road again. That's just how the board's going to be for the rest of the game. And as I was playing, I played a lot of those games, and I played Cosmic Encounter, which was one of the first games we owned, because I was a big role player back then, and then like on a lark at a game store, I picked up Cosmic Encounter, and we probably played Cosmic Encounter 300, 400 times my last 2 years of high school, because it was the only game we had. And so to me, I was really used to people buying a game and having a deep dive with it. And that's kind of like why I got into Warcry. I was kind of craving that deep dive back into a game and its lore. And And so when people were talking about Vast and they said, I can't play it enough times to learn all the rules, I just didn't know what was going on. I just didn't understand that. And then like it took me a while, an embarrassing amount of time to understand that what was happening was people were taking Vast and Root and Oath to pick up game nights, which is not how I play things. I'm not very casual about that sort of thing. I play with groups of people at my home. And so like I was just like, oh, so you're having to experience teaching the game completely every time you sit down with a group of people, and so you're not getting that deep exposure that you would that a game like Vast needs to flourish. A game like Root is, admittedly built on, like it fixed a lot of our mistakes, and so I think it is easier to pick up. But your 10th game of Root, your 50th game of Root, is going to be a lot more satisfying than your first game of Root. And so I think that was kind of the like what we had to relearn a little bit. Was with Oath, we were kind of like, let's play 10 games. And then I think there has been a resurgence of people saying, there's just a lot of stuff out there. It's better if I can settle down with the same group of people and learn this game. So, and you see, like,
I feel like the pandemic had a big part in that too.
Absolutely, yeah. And the one that gets me is like, from our own market research, we know that like there are groups of people who just play Scythe, like they just received a copy of Scythe somewhere, and that's the game. They don't even really know like too much about the rest of the game community, because they're just very like, I'm just going to play this game. That was like 5 years ago, so who knows what people are playing now. But yeah, I think Blood Rage kind of enjoyed the same thing though, where it was like there was people that were like, oh, this is really cool, and this is what I need, like from a game. I don't need to like buy 50 other games. So unlike me, who probably bought 4 last week. So
probably Gloomhaven now, or Frosthaven.
I picked up Space Corp from GMT last week to play solo, so I'm going to play that later tonight.
All right. Well, if you haven't gotten so to finish off the show here, if you haven't gotten your fill of 4-letter words, I've got a fun game show. I have no idea how this is going to go, because this is one I just kind of came up with. But I'm calling this Name That Game, the 4-letter edition. So to make this fair, because we're talking.
We do this a lot in the office.
Board game designer versus Phil, who doesn't necessarily have the background. I limited this to just games from our childhood. So like thinking like your Parker Brothers style games, Hasbro style games, and I've got 4 games here. They're not, the games themselves are not 4 letters, but I've come up with 4-letter words that describe bits of each part of the game. And
now, is Phil off limits? Is the word Phil off limits?
No.
Okay. All right.
So what it is I think I'm going to have, there's a couple ways to do this, but I think what I'm going to have is have you guys bid down. So there's 7, I've got 7 words, and I want to see how many words do you think it'll take for you to recognize the game? And have you alternate and see. So like Phil could say, I can name it in 7 words. And then, Patrick say, well, I can name it in 5 words, kind of thing.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
And the way we'd structure them is the first 1 or 2 are going to be kind of like, well, that could be any game. And then it's as you get further down, then it's going to become more and more obvious. Or this might be obvious from like the get-go. We'll see how this goes. So,
Gotcha.
Philip, I'm going to let you start.
Okay.
So how many words? So it's that I've got 7 words. So
you've got 7
as
okay.
far as you
Gotcha.
can go. So how many
10
words?
words.
How many?
Mix them up.
I got a few words for you then. So how many words do you think you can name this first game in?
I'm gonna start with 7.
Okay.
I'll say 5.
Ooh. Philip, do you think you can do better than 5?
I'll go with 4.
All right. Let's let him have it.
All right, Philip, can you name that game? All right, word number 1 is dice. Number 2 is pass. Number 3 is bank. And number 4 is free. What do you think?
Role player.
I said like Parker Brothers Hasbro style games.
Oh well, bank.
Think like
I'm ready to steal.
what think of what would have been at Walmart in the 90s. Dice, pass, bank, and free.
Rubble?
What did you say?
Can I steal?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
duh.
Patrick, you can steal.
He
Yeah,
said
oh, yeah.
rubble. I'm gonna say Monopoly.
It is Monopoly.
Yeah. Free parking,
Yeah.
pass and go.
Yeah, like no, word 5 would have been rent, and then you'd have debt, and the last word would have been jail.
All right.
Okay.
All right, all right. We'll let
I was too focused on a mechanic of nowadays of banking a dice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, now you know to
holding
like.
that.
Now you know to like erase your brain a little bit on that one. Okay. All right. Next game. Patrick, we're gonna let you start the bidding. So 7's the
I'll-
most.
I'll jump to 4.
Oh.
Go ahead.
All right, let's hear it.
All right. You've got card,
Okay.
draw,
Okay.
pawn,
Okay.
and home.
Pictionary.
Ooh, Philip, you got any guesses? Or would you like an extra word?
Card, draw, pawn, and home.
I'll give you word number 5 was bump.
Bump.
Sorry.
Yep. Did
Oh, there
cheat-
you go.
Did you cheat and look in the chat? Because Hoser 40K got it. Yeah, that was sorry.
All right.
Yeah.
Never played that game ever.
What? How have you never
Yeah.
played sorry?
It
I
didn't
honestly
look
haven't
interesting.
played. I haven't played it either.
Really? Wow.
Even as a child, like it
I've-
didn't look interesting.
I played Aggravation, which is based on, but it's sorry.
No, you're fine, Hoser 40K. It's fine. I was just. That's wow. I find that's kind of mind blowing that you hadn't. For me, like if you look at like the classic games like that, that would be the one I would pick. That was always fun for me because sorry, you get that little bit of
Wow.
being a jerk. If I'm gonna send you back, I'm gonna bump you back to start.
So Munchkin.
Yes, it was Munchkin before Munchkin. All right. All
I
right.
won't be so bold next time.
All right, Philip. Next one. Got seven words up. How many you think you can name?
5.
5. Okay.
Dang it. I'll do 4 again.
Okay. Philip, do I hear a 3?
You know what? Let's go with 3.
All
All
right.
right.
feel
Philip,
like
you're on.
Okay. All right. The first word is blue, and then pink, and rose.
Life.
Nope. I kind of I led you down a path on this one, but nope. Blue, pink, and rose. Word
Ooh.
4 might have given it away. Was grid.
Grid.
All right. I'll keep going. Then we got
All right,
rack,
one more.
I got nothing.
rack,
Uh-huh.
and then word 6 would have been tile.
Scrabble.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Because
du-
the double and the triples
The
were
doubles and the triples were blue and pink.
scores.
Yes.
blue and pink. There you go. All right. I like the misdirect there. Classic.
That was a little bit of a misdirect. All right, last one. I promise. All right, Patrick, I'll let you go on this one. We got seven words available.
All right, 7.
All right, Philip.
4.
4. Oh, jeez.
All right, let's let him have it.
I feel like you might got this one. So your 4 words are card, bank, path, and then pegs.
Card, bank, path, peg. That one, life.
Yes, that one was like.
Next two words, blue and pink.
No, I didn't put blue and pink in that one. No, then it would have been cars and spin.
Can I give you some life trivia?
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, all right.
All right. So I this is one of my favorite. Like I bring this up every time someone mentions it. So it used to be you could patent a game. Not true anymore. And so Life has a patent. You can go look it up. You can read all about it. It was played. I mean, they didn't have any ways to make games, right? So it was played on a it was played on an 8x8 grid, like a chessboard or checkerboard. And there was, I don't think you used one. It was just laid out like an 8x8. You started in the lower left corner, and it was like birth, and then the upper right corner was like dead after retirement or whatever was the win condition there. And then you would randomly determine if you were going to move up and to the right, down to the left, or left every turn. And the way you did that is because dice were so frowned on because of the association with gambling, especially from the Civil War. People were it came with this top that you would shove a pencil through, throw it in the air, and let it spin, and then how it landed was how like the move you would like it would show you what move to take. The original board actually had a space on it that would if you landed on it, your avatar committed suicide.
Oh, jeez.
And you're out of the game.
God.
And yeah, it was pretty. It was more like it was like make wise decisions, kids, not a like a game about like trying to win or lose. And so that was a game of life.
Surprisingly,
and
the original game of life, a lot more lifelike.
A lot more
Right?
lifelike. And so that I believe that's why, like in my opinion, and I have to like research this, but like that's why it has a spinner, is because
Well, that makes sense. It's very similar.
they moved from that top thing to a spinner. Was a more natural move than introducing dice to the game. So that's why it has that D10 spinner. And again, because it came out so early, it was better to put a spinner in it because that's for kids than putting dice in it, which could be used for craps or whatever's appropriate. So yeah.
I've heard people say this before, but I feel like the spinner needs to make a comeback. Someone needs to make a good game around a spinner.
I would love to do something where you can like kind of like that game in the 80s, the Parker Bros game that had dice, but you'd like put stuff on the spaces and build the board as you went. I'd love to have something where you can pick up wedges from the spinner and drop like what your spinner does, so you're kind of building your spinner as the game goes on. I think that'd be pretty. I think it'd be pretty rad.
And it could be called Spin.
It could be called Spin. Oh,
Yes, there we go.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I do have in my notes. I was trying to bring back roll and move because I still think there is. I still think there is a world where roll and move can work. And I like, obviously you have to add more to it than just rolling the dice, looking at it, and moving that many spaces. But I think there's still a space in there. So, but maybe spinner is the way to go. So, or spin.
All right. Well, before we wrap up the show, where do people need to be going to pay attention for all the new Leader Games news?
Yeah, so you can go to leadergames.com and see all of our stuff and order our stuff from our website. Well, direct sales are great because I don't know if you know the business of games, but we get a lot more money when we're selling direct.
And less likely to be counterfeit.
And it's much less likely to be counterfeit if you do that. And then on, let me get the date right so that Brooke doesn't get mad at me tomorrow. But we're looking at a launch on, I believe, May 29th for the Oath Kickstarter.
Nice.
If you didn't get Oath the first time, we'll be re-releasing the. Let me just click on this link and make sure I got that right, because now I'm sweating bullets here. And I like, honestly, if you're listening to me and think, God, what a weirdo, he doesn't pay attention to what his company's doing. I'm working on a project beyond all of this right now, so I'm pretty far out.
We're seeing that a lot, like especially we had Keith from Thunderworks Games on last time, and it's like you get lost in the details of what's the marketing people doing right now because you're working on what's going to fund the company 5 years from now.
Yeah, and then so it's hard for me to like, and I'm really serious about design right now because I've been bombing for the last couple of years in my design practice, so I'm really getting into it. Why don't we have the timeline on here? Oh my god, this is terrible. Anyway, so in late May, we're gonna be doing that Kickstarter. You could just go sign up to be informed when it goes off, and then you can back the Oath Kickstarter. And the great part about it is you will be getting we usually don't do all-in levels because they're hard for us logistically to plan around because we can only hold so much in the warehouse at a time. With Oath, we are able to deliver. We'll have an all-in pledge level for people that weren't able to get into it previously, and so now just think the Chronicle system will be a little bit easier to play. So yeah, and then I also watch for Cole, myself, Kyle Farron, and Leader Games on Twitter. We post pretty frequently.
All right. Well, I'm going to hit this button here.
And that's been our show. Once again, we want to thank Patrick for coming on and goofing off with us during this show. If you like what you see, you got to check out boardandswords.com /live. That's got the schedule and the streaming links. And if you just stick to the main page of Boards and Swords, it's got everything we've done in the past. And I don't know, Chris put stuff up there, all right? Maybe there might be a cat meme hiding in there somewhere. Go find it.
That's right. I post up all kinds of things. Then send us feedback. Let us know, who do you want to hear us talk to next? Email us feedback at boardsandswords.com. Boards and Swords Pod on Facebook. Boards and Swords Chris on Instagram. And like Philip said, boardsandswords.com for links to everything, like our Patreon. Help check out the show, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with another. Actually, I have to double check. No, 2 weeks is Memorial Day. We're taking off. I'm not doing a show on Memorial Day. So it'll be another 2 weeks after that. So boardsandswords.com /live's got the schedule. It's always up to date. But in the meantime, remember that every gamer has a story, and Philip's favorite 4-letter words are ones we can't say on the clean version of this podcast. All right. Thank you, everybody that joined us in the chat. I'm going to stop the show now, but we appreciate each and every one of you being there, and we will see you guys next time.